Tom Cody. Pleased to meet you.
I'll be coming for her. And I'll be coming for you, too.
Sure you will. And I'll be waiting.
Everyone, DeadEye here. I'm joined by my handsome and wonderful co-host, Mr. Molotov. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm spectacular, enjoying this tropical January weather.
This is the movie pill. If you're black pill by the current state of films, then we have the prescription for you. Today's medicine comes in the form of Walter Hill's rock and roll fable, Streets of Fire. This is a movie that it's the one that would have been the first one we would have spoken about had it not been for the Wraith.
Yeah, this is a movie that, again, like this bleeds 1980s sort of feeling and aesthetic in a lot of ways, but it's unique in that it almost creates a fictional decade for the film to be set in that a lot of people have referred to as the Fades, because it's a mix of the 50s and the 80s. The music, the aesthetic, the style of clothing, a lot of the tropes. It's a mix of both, and it creates this really interesting setting that I don't think you'll find any comparison in any other movie.
I guess in like an alternate universe, if you will.
At the very beginning, they bill it as being set in another time, another place. And I've seen this movie, I think, 3 or 4 times over the years. And my pet headcanon is that it's in an alternate version of maybe the 1980s. But why don't we summarize it for the good audience who may not have seen the movie?
So Streets of Fire was brought to us in the magical year of 1984.
Arguably the best movie for cinema in the 80s.
Oh, probably the best year for music and movies, quite frankly. The biggest thing about this is that it was brought to us by, as I said before, the great Walter Hill, whose movies, for the most part, are just the tits, quite frankly. The man himself is just the tits. If you actually look his interviews and everything, he just seems like a cool guy.
And I believe he said that every movie he's ever made has been a Western.
Yeah, I remember you saying in the previous one about the Wraith that you'd argue that the Wraith is a Western. This film is most certainly a Western, but I would also say that it's also got elements of fantasy. The idea is that you've got this guy called Tom Cody, who's this sort of he is like the archetypical leading man, the sort of alpha badass. I mean, the guy has what's probably one of the greatest leading man introductions in any movie, where he goes into his sister's diner, and his sister's being terrorized by a bunch of what I think look like they seem to be the fucking tunnel snakes from Fallout 3. They're just strutting around going, "Tunnel snakes rule," and waving switchblades in people's faces as
they're there to cause a ruckus for no good reason.
Then Tom Cody, played by Michael Pare, shows up, takes his jacket off, and you don't want to fuck with this guy because he's wearing like a shirt that's he's just ripped the sleeves off of it. He basically then goes ahead and just beats the living shit out of every single one of them.
He makes short work of those guys, and it really lets you know who he is, what his attitude is, and the extent of his capabilities as the protagonist. So Tom Cody gets brought back to this nameless city. I got sort of a sense that it's roughly the size of it's like a Chicago-like city or a Detroit-like city. It has a 24-hour running train system. Yeah. It has multiple districts. seemingly only 2 police officers on duty at any given time.
The 2 most ineffectual police officers of all time.
They're there to give you a traffic ticket, but they're not there to protect local celebrities or to keep the peace.
Yeah, the premise being that Tom Cody's ex-girlfriend, who is Ellen Aim, a famous singer, rock star, gets kidnapped by a biker gang called I think it's the Bombers. And
led by none other than Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe, who is, I can only describe him as handsomely terrifying.
He reminds me of Skeletor without the hood.
Yeah.
from He-Man. He looks downright ghastly in this role, but it works. You know, it lets you know the sheer scope of his menace.
I don't know. I don't know about ghastly because my friend Ashley, she loves this movie, and she has a massive crush on Streets of Fire Willem Dafoe. But she has weird taste in men anyway.
Well, you know, as McCoy said in the film, he's not my type. Willem Dafoe and the Bombers, after the performance of the opening song in this. In what's basically a musical for the sheer amount of musical performances in it, right?
Yeah, it's not a musical in the sense that, you know, everyone sort of breaks down into song and that they tell the story and how they're feeling through the song or anything. But it's there is a lot of music in it. So they got Jim Steinman, whose song "Nowhere Fast" is playing in the opening. And that's actually a very interesting thing, actually, because that version of Nowhere Fast, it's almost totally different from the Meatloaf version.
Well, this is the one that came first, and I could talk all day about Jim Steinman and his music. Jim Steinman's probably one of my favorite songwriters, of all time. He creates songs unlike anyone else.
Roy Cooder did the score, I believe, but the soundtrack has a number of different contributions on it. There's a sort of 50s retro band called the Blasters, which are seen in the Battery scene.
They arguably give the most spirited performance of any song ever put to film.
Oh yeah, they seem to have actually had a decent career after this as well, from what I can tell.
Yeah, I checked them out on Spotify. They got their own playlist and everything.
So the premise being that Tom Cody comes back because his sister asks him to come back, and his ex-girlfriend's been kidnapped, and it's starting to look like the plot of a Capcom fighter game.
This biker gang is so emboldened that they just rush the stage in front of thousands of people. If this happened in real life, people would probably think that it was part of the show, right? Yeah. But everyone starts panicking, freaking out. Bill Paxton jumps out of the crowd. He tries to stop them. Not even Bill Paxton can stop these guys, and they just steal Ellen Aim and make for the streets. Curiously enough, no police investigation whatsoever.
Absolutely none. It's amazing. Yeah. Like the first time we see the cops in this movie, or at least the first time we see them do anything, is when Tom Cody gets into town. I think he ends up taking the car from the guys that the fucking tunnel snakes that were causing a ruckus. And so he's driving his sister around recklessly, and that's when the cops decide to jump into action. Reckless driving, not in my supposed city. But
they don't even do anything. They pull him over. They give him a stern talking to.
Yeah.
They give him the warning of a ticket, and then they just let him go.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the fucking bombers walked into a venue filled with people, beat the shit out of the entire band, and then drag this woman out over slung over their shoulder, and that's it. The cops don't seem to want to do anything about it. They just kind of they just kind of seem annoyed by it.
They get more upset. It's almost it's implied in the story. They got more upset about the fact that when Tom Cody actually rescues Ellen Aim from the Bombers' hideout, which is a bar in the Battery, I think it's called, the neighborhood. they control. They get more upset that he quote unquote blew up the battery because he shoots up the motorcycles, which explode with just one hit. Either perfectly succinct bullets to the gas tank, or these are some damn shitty motorcycles.
No, I think what it is, the motorcycles are filled with nitroglycerin.
They are more upset that Tom Cody did their jobs for them.
Yeah.
Than they are about the actual kidnapping themselves, to the point where they set up blockades on the road all around the city to prevent people from moving between neighborhoods. The very end, where the armed posse shows up in the blink of an eye, when the bombers outnumber and outgun the local police, heavily armed, all pointing their guns at the invaders. That really tells you all you need to know about Walter Hill's views on an armed society being a polite society. He's
got a bit of a John Milius thing going on, although I don't think he was ever really blacklisted in the same way that John Milius was.
Based.
But yeah, so that is the plot of the movie. Basically, it's it's base. It's a damsel in distress film. And
it's a damsel in distress. It's a rescue movie.
Yeah, it's a rescue movie, and
it's a movie that's completely devoid of subplots.
Oh yeah, totally. It's got as I said earlier, we're saying that it is a western, but I also think it's kind of a fantasy movie because it's got that thing about it, like where they're first of all, you're kind of in a fantasy world, as we were discussing before. But you've also got the princess being kidnapped, but you've also got like these guys go off on this adventure to try and get the princess back, and they sort of pick up people along the way. They pick up, for example, this sort of adorable Munchkin-like individual called Baby Doll, who just kind of joins.
She had a name.
Yeah, yeah. You look in the credits. Her name's Baby Doll. She's not referred. I don't believe they've referred to her that way in the movie. But
this girl, I didn't even know she had a name. She annoyed the hell out of me.
Well,
she served no role in the plot, and then she just disappeared when they tell her to get lost.
She doesn't really do an awful lot. She just kind of randomly joins them for some reason. But I will say that there is one interesting thing about her, and I only found out about this or realized it before we started recording this. She's played by a girl called E.G. Daly, and she was the voice of Tommy Pickles in the Rugrats.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, because the thing is, I was watching it and thinking, I've heard that woman's voice before. Like, there's something familiar about it, and then I thought, wait a second, and I looked her up, and yeah, it's her. It's Tommy Pickles.
Tommy Pickles, another great American.
Oh, exactly.
I was wondering, she shows up at the apartment with Rick Moranis, and it's Diane Lane, right? Who plays that one?
Diane Lane, who, by the way, was 18 when she did this film. And Michael Pare was 23 when he did this. I was pretty shocked to hear that.
I feel like such an asshole. I've been calling him Michael Perry.
Well, I didn't know how his name was pronounced until I watched the documentary.
So, Baby Doll, I actually had a laugh out loud moment watching this because Michael Pare walks in to the apartment. He's like, "What are you still doing here?" And then she just leaves. She disappears from the movie at that point.
Yeah, that's when she vanishes. She just kind of.
She doesn't even show up at the end, like in like the final musical performance or anything like that. She's just written out. It almost felt like a role to me that was written for like one of the producer's kids. You know what I mean?
They also pick up an all-black a cappella band called the Sorrells, who are really cool.
Well, they're no B sharps, but they're all right.
They've got their own bus, which is what I love. They've got this fucking rundown junker. It looks like an old school bus or something. And Michael Perez was basically, Tom Cody steals their bus at gunpoint, and then like kidnaps them, and I don't know. They just become friends, and it's okay, you know. I mean, I guess they get their gig at the end, so I suppose it justifies it.
It's Rick Moranis' character, Billy Fish, who is the
oh god.
He's almost a secondary antagonist, but he exemplifies every scumbag music industry stereotype I can think of.
I love Rick Moranis in this film.
One of the things I really like about this movie, and it really fits into Rick Moranis' performance, and is that every line of dialogue in this movie is not only ultra hammy and cliched, but it's delivered with such gusto in the actual like dialogue delivery that it works.
It's so it's so like the way that a lot of the guys talk in this film, particularly Michael Pare and Rick Moranis, they talk almost in the way that one would talk if you were trying to mimic like an old school detective movie, where it's like, listen up, sweet cheeks, just like this really kind of grumpy, intense kind of way. And Rick Moranis is brilliant at it. He's just such a dick. He's like needlessly antagonistic to pretty much everybody, but it's not like annoying. It's really fun.
My other observation on that note too is that everyone in this movie, and I mean literally everyone, is a jerk. They are all utterly needlessly rude, mean, standoffish.
Look,
and confrontational to each other.
You'd feel that way if you lived in that fucking shithole.
I think I can't think of a single good-natured person except maybe Baby Doll in the entire script.
Maybe Bill Paxton's character, actually.
Bill Paxton's a jerk too. He does try and save Ella name at the beginning. He's the only person who actually does anything in that regard.
To be fair, the band tries. When
Tom Cody's introduced to McCoy, his sidekick in the movie, she's pretty cool too.
Oh yeah.
He needlessly picks a fight with her when all she does is ask for a refill on her drink. I actually started a Bill Paxton punch counter on my notes because I couldn't remember if Bill Paxton gets punched out repeatedly throughout the course of the movie. Turns out he gets punched twice. Yeah, I was disappointed. and I just want to say I miss Bill Paxton.
Oh, I miss him too.
He was one of my favorite movies. I think his last big film was Nightcrawler.
But yeah, if we're going to talk about McCoy, speaking of needlessly gruff and surly individuals in this film, McCoy is I'll say this, right? Ellen Aim is the she's of course the bombshell beauty of the film. She's she's gorgeous. She's the one that all the guys want. But McCoy, she's the woman that all the guys do want but won't admit.
You see, the government doesn't want you to know this, Ducky, but rock stars are free. You can just take them.
Well, apparently you could just, as long as you have a biker gang, you can just walk into a music venue and kidnap a woman. But back to McCoy, there's something very interesting about her, actually. She was originally written as a male. I believe the character was named Mendez originally. Amy Madigan, I believe, is the name of the lady who played McCoy.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with her as an actress.
She apparently she'd been advised to go in to audition for the role of Reva, who's Tom Cody's sister, the one that runs the diner. And she didn't really want to do that. She thought the Mendez character looked really interesting, and she was like, hey, why can't I do this? What Amy Madigan did was she just went up to Walter Hill and was like, hey, I want to play Mendez. And Walter Hill was like, huh. And he thought about it for a couple of days and was like, all right, fuck it. And so he just changed it so that she could play the character.
And it worked, it created an interesting character dynamic.
It absolutely, yeah.
It played into the plot. It was used in a smart way in the plot, and she took that part and made it her own. And I can't imagine this movie without McCoy as McCoy in it, as played by Amy Madigan. I'm reminded of the characters for Alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Ridley Scott picture, were all written, like, not as women or men, and they just auditioned people. And the reason that Ripley is iconically played by Sigourney Weaver is because she was the best audition.
Nowadays, if someone did it, why they did it. It wouldn't be because of any kind of sort of, I think this idea would actually work. I think this would be cool, which is what Walter Hill did. Nowadays, it would be done for purely political, culture war reasons.
But she's not a Mary Sue type female character, right?
Certainly not. No.
And that's the key to writing, good roles in genre movies for female characters. It's to fit them into the tapestry of the script, and not make the whole revolve around them. You know what I mean? And that seems to be a phenomenon that we see a lot of in movies of the last 10 years.
Her and Billy Fish, I like their thing. They're just constantly at each other's fucking throats, but the whole film, I'm just thinking, like, God, are they just gonna fucking get it over with? Come on.
Well, that's literally all the dialogue, man. Like, everyone is constantly at each other's throats. The writing's really snappy.
Oh yeah.
And the editing is also really snappy in this film.
It's a snappy film. It's like I said, if someone, there are a few movies where I could say, like, if I was just hanging out with people and someone said, "Hey, well, stick on Streets of Fire," I'd be like, "Yeah." Another one that I could think of is probably You Only Live Twice, my favorite Bond movie. And the Brendan Fraser The Mummy movie from 1999 or 2000. Those are those kinds of movies. It's like, yeah, I'll stick that on. We'll watch it. Anytime.
Well, for me, it's like Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
it's an easy watch. You can throw it on. There's some good old fashioned fight scenes.
I love the bit in what we were talking about earlier at the battery. It comes off like a video game level.
It comes off like a Grand Theft Auto mission almost, where it's like we got to create a distraction and then go in and then get her out of there. One thing you might not expect when watching this is that he rescues her. They rescue her, I should say, about 35 to 40 minutes into a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
So, you would think that it would be like this quest to like get there, and the rescue would come off at the climax of the film. But no, she's actually rescued about a third of the way through. The second third is like character drama almost, and their struggle to get back to their side of town. Which is very similar. It has echoes of The Warriors almost.
Oh yeah,
another Walter Hill work of mastery, which could almost be set in the same universe. And then the final third of the movie is just it's the climax.
Yeah,
which is a pretty straightforward climax. Willem Dafoe and Michael Pare duel each other with sledgehammers.
Yeah,
as one does, to settle their differences, and it works out pretty well. Willem Dafoe gets his ass kicked. His loyal henchmen load him onto the back of a motorcycle and wheel him away, and he lives to fight another day.
All those bikers, by the way, well, at least a good portion of those bikers were actually real, like, Hells Angels, by the way, because Walter Hill, knew a bunch of Hells Angels.
As one does.
Yeah.
As one does.
Walter Hill just seems... the more I learn about Walter Hill, the more I just think that he should be crowned Lord King of the fucking universe.
One of the things that occurred to me watching this is that they didn't bring in any known quantities in terms of musical acts to be in the movie. They have several bands, performing in the film, but no one that you would really stand out and identify. It's not like that they have well-known artists, I should say.
Yeah,
and that helps to create sort of a timelessness, and it makes the universe almost more immersive. You know what I mean?
You've got a track called Sorcerer, which I think is written by Stevie Nicks. It's not performed by her. Certainly not on the soundtrack. It's performed by someone called Marlon Martin. But you listen to that track, it's obviously a Stevie Nicks track. But and one of my favorite tracks on the album is "I Can Dream About You,"
that's a good one.
Which is done by a guy called Dan Hartman. If I remember correctly, I think he actually originally wrote that and to give to Hall & Oates, but they turned it down. They were originally going to use "Streets of Fire" by Bruce Springsteen because it was the song that the movie is named after. And they couldn't get it in time. I think they actually did film an ending sequence using that song, but they couldn't get it, so they got Jim Steinman to write a track, and what a track he fucking wrote. One of the best, like, final songs you could see, like, in a movie. Just perfect, quite frankly.
And this song encapsulates the film. It oozes that Jim Steinman over-the-top rock and roll epic,
operatic,
operatic grandiosity. It's a fantastic song. I've always wished that Meatloaf had recorded a version of it.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Since his version of Nowhere Fast is equally as good, I think, as the Fire Inc. version.
Yeah, it's really weird to listen to them side by side because they're so different. Like the lyrics are so different. I like that this version has that bit where they're singing, Godspeed, that bit. The Meatloaf version doesn't have that, but I don't know. Both versions just rock tits, so I don't really care.
It's a fantastic song, and if you have any doubts about watching this movie, throw on Tonight Is What It Means to Be Young, and you'll want to watch Streets of Fire.
Yeah, and it's and what's really cool about it is that it's got that. It's a very triumphant sounding song. But at the same time, whilst the main character has a lot of stuff to feel triumphant about, he doesn't actually get the girl at the end. In fact, he sort of Casablancas her, if you will. He deliberately lets her go because it's like, look, you're better off with him than you are with me. The scene that you see before the ending sequence. With him and with Tom Cody and Billy Fish, Rick Moranis' character, is like Rick Moranis pays him, and then Tom Cody's just like, right, this is the grand that I promised McCoy, and he throws the rest of the money back at him, and he's like, fuck you, I'm not taking your money. And Rick Moranis utters one of my favorite lines in the entire movie, which is once Tom Cody leaves, he turns to Diane Lane and goes, you know what his problem is? He's stupid. Like, just such a great line, like it's just the simplest line.
Rick Moranis gets all the good lines in this, man, and he's a total little mouthy pipsqueak in this.
Yeah.
Everyone in this movie could kick Rick Moranis' ass.
Oh god, like his character exudes small dick energy. It's amazing. He's trying to sort of stand up to Tom Cody because he's really insecure about him and Ellen Aim having had a relationship prior to this, and Tom Cody just grabs him by the scruff and goes, the only problem with kicking your ass is that it would be too easy.
And then McCoy totally burns him by saying something like a big muscly tough guy like you's got nothing to worry about.
He does such a good job at it. That he's entertaining to watch, and it's entertaining to watch him getting burned by McCoy and Cody and whatnot. But I always thought it was funny how, at the end, Rick Moranis says, he's softened to Cody, and he's like, yeah, she needs me, but she loves you, and all that. But Tom Cody's like, nah, you better keep her.
See, that's what they call in screenwriting an arc. You start down here, you end up here.
Yeah, but he'd obviously done quite a bit of thinking while Tom Cody was having a sledgehammer fight with Willem Dafoe in the street.
As one does. Well, we could talk about Willem Dafoe's leather suspender outfit.
his leather
What
suspender
the
outfit.
what the hell was that? We could talk about the androgynous stripper in the bar who's dancing.
Oh God!
That all the bikers are going crazy over, despite the fact that she looks like a 12-year-old boy.
She yeah, like I gotta say though, she you know, she was working about as hard as the blasters were, quite frankly.
She was killing it.
She was absolutely, you know, just swinging around on that pole and you know, just and she was chewing gum all the while as well. So kudos to her. But yeah, I liked I really love Willem Dafoe's his fishing trunks. You know, apparently.
Were those fishing trunks? Is that what that was?
They look like, yeah, it's like that sort of thing that like fishermen wear, where they're like they've got that. It's a sort of fisherman's dungarees, you know, where they used to like wade out into water and everything. But apparently, when they had scenes like that, where like Willem Dafoe or Tom Cody is like walking down a hallway with their shirt off or with their arms exposed, they had like these sort of exercise bars where they would just take them and flex them, and the idea was to sort of pump up their muscles so that they're walking down the corridor and they look a bit pumped up, you know. And apparently Rick Moranis was doing it as well.
What a time to be alive.
There was actually going to be a trilogy of these movies. Right?
No kidding. I had a feeling about that actually, because nothing is definitively resolved at the end. But you say there was going to be a trilogy?
Yeah, there was going to be a trilogy of Tom Cody movies. Unfortunately, though, the film didn't do so well at the box office. Actually, I was reading some like bits of reviews from back then, and it just seems to be, it's another one of those cases where back then, like, you know, you see the critics shit all over a film, and, you know, then decades later, the film's a fucking cult classic.
Fuck the critics, man.
Exactly, fuck the critics. I mean, look at what they said about John Carpenter's The Thing, for example, and, you know,
they ruined critics ruin everything. They ruin the chance for great fun movies like this and these unique ideas to truly spread their wings. I don't think that's so much of an issue nowadays, but because nobody takes critics seriously anymore.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, it's a lot easier for a movie like this, based off of a unique concept, to reach a broader audience. You know, and of course, you know, Netflix and Amazon will produce even the worst concept scripts and throw money at those. So I mean, you know, someone will see your movie, and it doesn't matter so much what the critics will say these days. But back then, critics could kill your movie before it even got off the ground.
Absolutely, yeah. However, the film sort of does have a sequel. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know if you know about this, dude. And I haven't seen it. All right, but it's a film called Road to Hell, and it was directed by Albert Pune, who is the probably most well known for having directed that really shitty Matt Salinger Captain America film. He's also very well known for having done stuff like Cyborg and Dollman and stuff like that. He died actually recently, Albert Pune. He did this film which was quote-unquote inspired by Streets of Fire, although it's considered sort of an unofficial sequel, and it does actually star Michael Pare.
No kidding.
Again, I haven't seen the film. I don't know what it's like. I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring up, that technically Streets of Fire kind of has a sequel, sort of.
No, that is it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes too much. This is Albert Pune we're talking about. Rest in peace.
Fair enough.
One more thing, actually, that I want to bring up here is this is another thing you wouldn't see in modern movies: the scene where Michael Pare just flat out knocks out L and Aim.
I put that in my notes as well. I just didn't know the way to introduce that into the conversation.
Just flat out fucking decks her because it's like they're moving away and like he's just like, no, I'm gonna go back and kick the shit out of Raven. And she's like, what are you talking about? And then he just fucking knocks her out cold. And McCoy just stands there and like catches her like she knew that was going to happen. And it's oh god, again, it's just something you wouldn't see nowadays.
You would not see that in a film at all nowadays. I mean, yeah, it was another time, another place.
I guess. I suppose it was.
You need to see this movie. There's really nothing else, in my view, quite like it. It's a perfect blend of just smart, fun, in-universe writing. It makes you feel like this is a real, breathing world with the writing and the editing and the cinematography. It's not really a fancy film. It's straight. There's no subplots, as I mentioned before, and the plot is bare bones. It's a rescue story with a love story wrapped into it. But I mean, it works. It's a fun movie. There's nothing quite like it. The soundtrack is phenomenal. Every song is a banger, especially the Steinman ones.
Yeah.
This film was so good that an entire band made it their entire aesthetic, and that band is the Proto Men.
Oh yes, of course. I forgot about the Proto Men.
And if Streets of Fire is good enough for the Proto Men to structure their entire image around, it's good enough for you to watch.
I was actually, that you've reminded me that I was actually going to talk about some of the influence this film has had, and one of them is the Proto Men had their second album. Which you look at the album artwork, it's Streets of Fire, but it can't be anything else. But apparently, Streets of Fire was and is very, very popular in the Land of the Rising Sun, Japan. Which
they have the best taste in everything.
Oh god, they do. I mean, it's just it's so funny. Like it's like bands and whatnot. They're just like if they don't get big in like Europe or in America or Britain, then they'll get big in Japan. If they're any good, they'll get big in Japan. But you can see that Streets of Fire has had an influence. The one that comes to mind is actually an anime called Bubblegum Crisis, which rather famously opens with a song, and the band playing on stage. When you look at the female singer in that band and the way that she's positioned and the way that she looks to some respect, it's L and Aim from Streets of Fire. It's precisely that. So yeah, it's just another one of those odd things that we apparently tossed aside, but those brilliant people over in Japan, they saw something in it.
The Japanese truly do see the best in Western culture when they embrace it, don't they?
Yeah, indeed they do. But my take from this film is that it's as Colin said, it's bare bones as hell, but it exudes style, it exudes emotion. I remember there's a sort of retro wave, if you will, a band called Le Broc, and they released an EP called Action and Romance, right? And I think that pretty much sums up this movie. It's action and romance, and that is the ethos of the 80s to me. And so, yeah, if you want to see a movie that almost perfectly encapsulates that decade and the style and the aesthetic and the music of it, then this one. I mean, I know I said that The Wraith is probably the most 80s movie ever made. I don't know. This one probably beats it, but then we might have a lot of other ones in the future that may beat this one. Who knows? I'll have to take a look at my list.
Each film more 80s than the last.
Absolutely. Maybe that's what we should have called this show, More 80s Than the Last. That has been our talk on Streets of Fire. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been the Movie Pill. I've been DeadEye. This has been the wonderful Mr. Molotov. Say bye to the people.
Stay based and movie pilled, people.
And may you ride the night to the morning sun.